Welcome to Good Grief, the podcast where resilience meets reality. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Malone. In this podcast, we delve deep into the stories of individuals who've triumphed over tragedy, adversity, and trauma. In every episode, we bring you raw and honest narratives from guests who faced life's most challenging moments head on. Through candid conversations, they share their journeys of resilience, shedding light on the strategies, mindset shifts, and support systems that empowered them to rise above their darkest hours. Join us as we explore the profound depths of human resilience and discover how, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and yes, good grief. Okay, listeners, thank you so much for joining me today for my podcast. My guest today is Steve Gamlin. He's going to share with us his story of the loss of his wife. Steve's a professional speaker. And Steve, go ahead, and if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. My name is Steve Gamlin. I live in a little town out in the woods in southern central New Hampshire. And over the past 20 years, I've enjoyed being a professional speaker, did 7 years of stand-up comedy. Prior to that, 10 years in the radio industry, have self-published 4 books. And my greatest joy and achievement in life was getting to be head over heels in love with my Tina for 6,386 days. We literally brought a fairy tale to life. And now I get to talk about her for the rest of mine.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about the fairy tale. How did all that start?
Well, on June 16th of 2007, at that point, I'd been divorced for several years, was putting myself back together, got into speaking, into visualization. I wear the Got Vision t-shirt every day. I have like 8 of them. And that year, I said, this is the year I want to really put my life back together and find my perfect partner. And I'd been building that relationship on vision boards for a couple of years, the type of person I knew I needed to be, the type of perfect partner that I wanted to have in my life. In the first week of June in 2007, I wrote in my journal, I am ready to fall in love. And on June 16th, I got an email from someone named Tina, and I nearly deleted it because I thought it was spam. And the next day I opened it up and realized it was a girl I'd gone to high school with, hadn't seen or spoken to in 21 years. And I'd had a crush on her in high school for 3 years and never asked her out. And 21 years later, 10 days after I wrote in my journal, I'm ready to fall in love, she reached out to me. At that time, was living in Florida, 1,350 miles from home. And I answered her back. And a month later, with just phone calls, texts, and emails, she admitted she'd felt the same way in high school and still did. And we both told each other, sight unseen, that we loved each other. And that kept going until she passed in December of 24.
24. So I know you mentioned that you were on Oprah because of your love story. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Oprah was also part of my early vision boards. And if you've ever written a book or if you want to get famous, you want Oprah talking about you. So I would stick a picture of Oprah on my vision board every year. And right around 2009 or so, I'm looking at Oprah's picture there. And I said, well, Oprah, you haven't reached out to me. So let me see what you're up to. And I went to her website and it said, hey, do you know that Oprah has a channel on XM satellite radio? And I said, no, I do not. And I clicked on it and it was all of Oprah's friends who had all of these different shows. And one was called The Law of Attraction by a gentleman named Michael Ozier, who wrote the book, The Law of Attraction. Clicked on that. We're looking for call-in guests. Clicked on that. And it said, in 250 words or less, share your Law of Attraction success story. And I typed Tina and I reconnected. 10 days after I said I was ready to fall in love. And one business day later, I got a call from a woman with a lovely British accent. Her name was Lola Vanderpoy. And she said, Michael Lozier was fascinated by your story, and he'd like to know if you'd like to be on his show this Thursday, if you're amenable to that. And I said, Lola, I don't know what amenable means, but I'll be there. And I was on the Michael Lozier show. And then 3 other producers heard about it and reached out to me and said, we'd love to have you on our show too. So I did 4 appearances on Oprah's XM satellite radio network, sharing our story. And Tina has been rolling her eyes ever since whenever I shared our story.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. So I know you were out of town when Tina passed away. Is that right?
Yes.
You were on.
Yeah, we were 3,000 miles from home in England for a week's vacation, and we arrived early on a Sunday morning, and unfortunately, Tina passed away on Monday morning.
And that was unexpected? It was like she wasn't ill, nothing like that?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
She'd been struggling with, menopause side effects for about a year and a half. She would struggle to even get a solid night's sleep, so
Mm,
she was very, very tired quite a bit, and it
mhm.
turned out she also had ischemic heart disease that we were not aware of, how severe it was, and that is what ultimately caused her death. It was, very unexpected, very
Yeah.
untimely. She was only 56 years old, and it was a wake up sign and a warning call that I wish I had known more about and had seen more evidence of because we definitely could have tried to do something about it.
Right. Well, it's like a lot of those hidden health issues, we don't know about them until, unfortunately, something bad happens oftentimes. So you came back to the US, and so tell us what's been going on with your life since then.
Since then, it has been a nightmare of processes, procedures, and people. And this is something that I share with everyone now. If you're in a long term relationship, at the very least, go to town hall and get married. Tina and I never actually got officially married, which puts me in a very difficult position. Let each other know what your plans are for your funeral. I was the only person Tina had communicated with that she wished to be cremated and have a closed casket viewing, which also presented some difficulties. And
Mhm.
also let your partners know all of your passwords, including your phone, your email, everything. Know where all the bills are because we didn't do that either. So it has been a very difficult road for me. The first 5, 6, 7 weeks after Tina passed, my full time job was finding everything and digging for everything.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when my first husband died. We were both only 31, so no one expected that. I have been adamant about making sure my will is up to date and all my information is out there and so on since then, probably almost too morbid about it, but I wanna make sure things are as smooth as possible for those that'll still be here when I go. Yeah, so tell us about your podcast, your show. What is it you do?
I talk about a blend of positivity, visualization, motivation, education, inspiration, and a lot of humor thrown in as well from my background. So I like to ask people if you like to laugh while you learn stuff, then my show is probably a pretty good one to listen to.
Laughter is incredibly healing. I actually had a guest not long ago who uses laughter as a form of therapy in group settings, which I'd never even heard of that before, but it was really very interesting to hear about that. But yeah, laughter, I find my sense of humor can be a little odd compared to others, but I find that humor is definitely one of my languages as well, especially if I'm really wanting to lighten things up and make the conversation a little more, informal or whatever. Throw some humor in there.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you already shared, I was going to ask you what you would share for people to be prepared in times of something like a sudden loss like that. So thank you for sharing that. But do you have any other input on, what to do or what not to do? I know people say don't buy a house or don't do this, whatever, in the first year and all that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely sit exactly where you are. You're going to want to hit the pause button for a while because your brain and your heart are not going to be in the state they're supposed to be. Looking back now, when we're just over 3 months, I would say I was in shock for at least the first 6 weeks and
Yeah.
didn't even realize it. I knew the first few days I was in shock. I didn't realize just how long that shock landed. One of my first calls, second or third day after Tina passed, was to a dear friend who started off as one of my speaking clients, who actually wound up as my real estate agent because she's the president of a team here in New Hampshire. And she said, Steve, the first thing I'm going to tell you this right now, do not think you're going home and selling the house. She said, 6 months.
Yeah.
And if you need me to cover for you, I'll cover for you. But she said, do not make a serious decision like that for at least 6 months. And she was absolutely right.
Yeah, true. When my first husband died, I did move. I packed up all of his stuff and saved only a few items that I shared with my kids later, and I sincerely regret that because I would love to have had more stuff that maybe they would have liked, but I just wanted it all away from me, and that was
Yeah.
that was a mistake. It was a mistake. I did stay in my house for 20 plus years after my son died, um, but it took me a long time to even get rid of some of his stuff. I was like, I needed to just make sure everything was where it needed to be before I made a decision that I couldn't go back on, right? I can't get that back once I get rid of it or whatever, those types of things. So that's great advice. Yeah, friends and family being important to you, I'm sure, and through this whole process.
Most definitely. Yeah, it's, not all the relationships are where I would like them to be, but for the majority, yes. The first questions I was hearing from my family when I was stuck over in England was, "Are you okay?" Meaning mentally and emotionally. "Are
Right.
you in an okay place? What can we do, and how can we help?" And that made life so much easier. I mean, I literally sat there the first 5 days just shaking and shattered
Yeah.
after Tina passed because I found her. I helped try to resuscitate her with a hotel staff member until the EMTs got there. They tried for her. She was gone. She literally passed away in my arms. And despite how difficult that was, I'm very grateful actually that she hung on long enough that I was there to be with her because my biggest fears were that she was scared and that
Yeah.
she was alone. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
And 5 days later, my sister arrived. She flew 5,000 miles to be with me and wound up staying with me, another week and a half there, and then a couple of weeks here back at home just to make sure I was gonna be okay here in our home, and that she felt I had a good enough foundation under me to continue to heal and to grow and to push my way and recover through this.
Yeah. It's a great example of how to really support someone. I mean, it's not always easy to say, and people who say things like, "Let me know if I can do something." It's a lot more helpful if you actually just jump in and do something, rather than ask the grieving person to figure it out for them. For me, people coming over and doing laundry or cleaning my house or picking my kids up from school or whatever. Those were all very practical things that you might not think of, but boy, were they lifesavers for me in a time when I could not hardly function.
Yeah, my normal pattern for something like this in the years, past would have been to just cocoon and say, "I'm all set, I'll work through it."
Yeah.
Well, I'm 6'2" at size 12 feet. You're talking about a big cocoon on the other side of which was not gonna be a gorgeous butterfly. It was gonna be basically a cocoon that was just hanging there rotting,
Yeah.
and I knew it was gonna be that way. So on my 2nd day in England, first day after Tina passed, I was already online searching for grief support groups in and around our hometown, knowing that this time I couldn't do the old way. This was gonna be way too difficult, and it would be very unwise for me. And I've dealt with depression in the past. I've not had a drop of alcohol in almost 4 years. I had people reaching out asking, "Do you wanna have a drink?" Actually, I didn't, but I'm so appreciative that they asked. And I
Mhm.
have found the resources that I'm part of an 8-week group grief program and also have a series of calls, one-on-one calls with a counselor that Tina's company had provided for me, which I thought was such a wonderful gift because they all knew how much in love we were. Matter of fact, she moved all the way back to New England because she was so in love that they actually created a job for her in New England that didn't exist before so that we could be together.
Oh, what a wonderful employer that is. I mean, I don't hear that every day. That's wonderful. I'm so glad that happened. And yeah, what a great support for you as well. So thank you for sharing your story. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish?
Just if you're going through something like this, do not isolate, please. There are people around you. There are groups online. There are shows like this. Listen to shows like this because even if it's not your exact situation, I bet you can relate to the little bits of gold that are just sitting there waiting for you to pick them up, put them in your pocket, and let them help you shine.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Well, Steve, thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate hearing your story about Tina. And yes, thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Good Grief. We hope that the stories shared today have inspired and empowered you on your own journey of resilience. If you want to dive deeper into the themes of trauma, tragedy, and survival, be sure to check out my memoir, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival. In this book, I shared my own raw and honest experiences, offering insights and strategies for overcoming life's toughest challenges. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or listen to it on Audible. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful stories to light and spread a message of hope and resilience. Stay tuned for more incredible stories on our next episode. Until then, remember, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and good grief.